Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all of you to this episode of All Things Lean with your host, Madhulika Rajahan. In our last episode, we talked about empathy mapping. In this episode, we will talk about what is empathy and why is it so important in design thinking. It's fairly safe to assume that you want your products to actually work, right? Then you need to start the design process with empathy. One of the most important elements in both design thinking and the wider area of human-centered design. But what is empathy exactly and why is it so vital? Let's take a look at what empathy means and how it can help you as a design thinker create solutions that actually work for people. While we are at it, let's also explore how a lack of empathy can result in product failure, something we all want to avoid. By the end, you'll come to understand the empowering notion that everyone can increase their empathy and by doing so, start to design solutions that are truly human-centric. Empathy is our ability to see the world through other people's eyes, to see what they see, feel what they feel, and experience things as they do. Of course, none of us can fully experience things the way someone else does, but we can attempt to get as close as this as possible. We achieve this empathetic state as we put aside our own preconceived ideas about the world and choose to understand the ideas, thoughts, and needs of others instead. IDEO's human-centered design toolkit explains that in the world of design thinking, empathy is a deep understanding of the problems and realities of people you are designing for. In other words, empathy requires you to learn about the difficulties people face and uncover their latent needs and desires to explain their behaviors. You need to gain an understanding of their environment, as well as their roles and interactions within it if you want to truly empathize with them. Empathy helps you appreciate people's emotional and physical needs, gain insight into way people see, understand, and interact with the world around them. Realize how lives are impacted within the contexts being investigated. Find out what people mean rather than just what they say. Empathetic research is inherently subjective and is concerned with motivations and thoughts rather than facts. Empathy is often confused with sympathy, a mistake you definitely don't want to make in the world of design thinking. Sympathy is about your ability to show concern for the well-being of another, but does not necessarily require you to experience what others do. Now you have begun to understand what empathy means. You can see there is a clear difference. What's more, sympathy often involves a sense of detachment and superiority. When we sympathize, we tend to project feelings of pity and sorrow onto the other person. These feelings do not only have a potential to rub people the wrong way, but also prove useless in the design thinking process. In design thinking, your goal is to understand the people for whom you design, not react to their current predicament in an emotional way. The empathize stage of design thinking requires you to visit your users in their natural environments. Learn about how they behave and conduct interviews with them. Also, you can create a solution which helps solve a problem they face. You need empathy to achieve that, not sympathy. Empathize is actually the first stage of the design thinking process. What could be more important than that? It makes sense really when you think about it. Your goal as a designer is to gain an empathetic understanding of the people you design for. After all, You should have a burning desire to observe, engage, and empathize with the people you design for to understand their experiences and motivations. What's more, you'll need to immerse yourself in their physical environment if you want to have any chance at gaining a deeper personal understanding of the issues, needs, and challenges involved in their day to day lives. When you immerse yourself in the environment and in the context of the people you design for, you often get a completely different perspective than what you might expect. What might seem like a good weather for you, say warm and sunny, may well be a not so nice day for someone else. Empathy is simply crucial to a human-centered design process, such as design thinking, as it helps you set aside your own assumptions about the world to gain insights into your users and their needs instead. The empathize stage of the design thinking process is a time for you to collect as many experiences, insights, and observations as possible so you can build a solid foundation for the rest of your design project. We cannot stress enough how important it is for you as a designer to develop the best possible understanding of your users, their needs, and the problems that your product or service is trying to solve. You and your team can gain huge insight via the practical empathize method below. And if time and money allows for it, it may also be worthy to get some experts on board to help you fully understand the people you want to design for. Empathize methods. What's good to note is that empathetic phase of design thinking is named differently depending on which version of the methodology you follow. Different schools and companies which use design thinking have called empathetic research the empathize stage, as we do. The understand phase, the hear phase, and simply looking, as well as a number of other terms. Regardless of which phase you're familiar with, the core is essentially the same. Empathy is deeply human-centric and is essential at the start of any design process. Empathy can also be deemed as essential component of business solutions when you look at things from the perspective of profit. You may create solutions which completely miss the mark if you develop solutions in isolation. You need to gain essential insights about your users if you want to remain relevant in the market. After Frank Chimero, author of The Shape of Design, said, people ignore designs that ignore people. Many leaders within the field of innovation, learning, and entrepreneurship have pointed to three key parameters which define a successful product or service: desirability, feasibility, and viability. It's not enough that the technology exists, that is, feasibility is present, and that profits or business benefits may be derived, that is, it is viable. Users need to feel a sense of desirability towards the solution. We can only design a desirable product or service when people's needs, experiences, wants, and preferences are properly understood. When you design product and services, you should aim for the sweet spot between feasibility, viability, and desirability. It can only be achieved when you have built sympathy for your users. One clear example of this is the iPod. Many MP3 players came and went throughout the late 1990s and didn't create much of an impact. Then came along the iPod in 2001. It was not only provided a technological solution, but also delivered a completely desirable and viable experience. This meant Apple took the lead in the market and continued to hold it for many years to come, generating huge profits along the way. Empathy is also the only way to thoroughly understand what people mean, rather than just absorb what they say. You'll have noticed by now people do not necessarily always cover the details when they share stories and other information. They may withhold information out of fear, distrust, or another inhibiting factor, be it internal or based on those with whom they engage, and they may express themselves in a less than articulate way. As a designer, you therefore need to make sense of what is not being said or what is being hinted at beneath the external expressions and words. Develop intuition, imagination, and emotional sensitivity and creativity so you can dig deeper into people's experiences. Extract the right kind of insight to ensure you make a meaningful difference. Empathy is the difference between what your users say at face value and what IDEO Executive Design Director Jane Futon Suri describes as thoughtless acts. Thoughtless acts are small, subtle acts people exhibit that reveal how their behaviors are shaped by their environment. For example, when people hang their sunglasses on their shirt or wrap colored stickers around their keys to differentiate them, it's a sign of how an imperfectly tailored environmental forces us to make an almost unconscious reaction. Empathy can help us find opportunities for new insights and new solutions to help people with these suboptimal unconscious acts. Become conscious of your empathy. If you're worried you're unable to master being fully empathetic towards the people you design for, there's good news. Neuroscientists have recently discovered empathy is hardwired into the way humans are made and is therefore an integral part of our physiology. Humans who observe others show brain activity which resembles someone actually engaged in the activity being observed. In other words, empathy is an innate quality we can all make use of to design for the people around us. Think about it. Have you experienced a flurry of emotions or rush of adrenaline when you've observed someone else engaged in an activity? This is because we are empathetic beings by our own very nature. Our social contexts and methods of learning often work to remove this inbuilt empathy to large extent or at the very least tame it. But when you engage with the people you design for, this wall starts to break down and you become more conscious about your levels of empathy, especially if you keep an open mind. However, keep in mind that gaining empathy isn't something you get, then you have it forever. It is a skill that needs you to be constantly practiced and honed. Not everyone can grasp empathy easily. For some people, it's harder than it is for others. Neurodiversity, which is the range of differences in individual brain functions and behavioral traits, can affect how readily empathy is learned and understood. This is regarded as part of normal variations in the human population. So, no matter what, practice, practice, practice to up your empathy skill game. Empathy isn't just for users, it's also for stakeholders and teammates. Let's look at the case study of designing without empathy. Why doesn't everyone wear augmented reality glasses as they go about their daily lives? Probably because we find it ever so slightly awkward to shout out commands in public. Did designers ever empathize with their users when they designed this product? It will be interesting to see what the future holds for these wearable computers. Let's look at the key takeaways. Empathy is important for us as designers, and particularly within the field of design thinking, because it allows us to truly uncover and understand the latent needs and emotions of the people we design for. The empathize stage actually makes up the first stage of the design thinking process, and it allows us to design solutions that meet all three parameters of a successful product or service: desirability, feasibility, and viability. With this, we come to an end to this episode of All Things Lean. We will continue to talk about design thinking in more details in our upcoming sessions. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment in the comments section on what you'd like to hear more. Until next time, this is your host, Madhulika Rajahan, signing off. Have a wonderful day ahead.